Any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid, she can be a star maid if she dances with or without her fan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you might be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood. Hooray for Hollywood, that phony super coney Hollywood. They come from Chillicothe's and Paducahs with their bazookas to get their names up in lights, all armed with photos from local rotos, with their hair in ribbons and legs in tights. Hooray for Hollywood. You may be homely in your neighborhood, but if you think that you can be an actor, see Mr. Factor, he'd make a monkey look good. And all your friends will say, hey look, there's Doris Day. Hooray for Hollywood. Yeah.
Welcome one and all. This is Take Two, the movie program on Central Coast Public Radio from Salinas to Ventura, Take Two. And tonight, an overview of many different things. We're going to have a very brief tribute to the late Lynn Redgrave, who passed away. Also, a look in the fact that summer starts almost in a week in the movie business. And a few other things. We'll be taking your phone calls and taking a look into the Take Two mailbag. Across the aisle from me, it's my very good friend, the man who I think knows more about movies than anybody on the planet. It is Bob Whiteford.
And across the aisle from me, the undeniable czar of film on the Central Coast, King Vidor Award-winning, and let's just face it, all-around nice guy. I dig him, you dig him. I'm talking about the one, the only gentleman, Jim Dee. And Jimmy, it's great to be back. It's nice to be able to talk again. Though I'm sure some people out there would be going, oh, that guy, the way he enunciates. Listen, I graduated from the Leo Gorcey School of Diction. That's like the moral equivalent of the Leon Spinks driving school, and I'm darn proud of it. But it's great to be back, Jimmy.
Yeah, we're here to have some fun, also to pay tribute to a great screen icon who we lost today, but also our first live show since our three-part Humphrey Bogart series, and we're back in action here, and we just wanted to connect with the audience and have sort of a painting with those wide swashes tonight as far as taking a look at upcoming films. We like to draw your attention to maybe some of the big films and the films under the radar that are slated for this summer. Just a lot. And if we have time, which I think we will, we'll open up the phone lines and take your calls. First of all, Bob, I was, sad to hear that Lynn Redgrave had passed, and immediately going online and checking out her filmography, I just thought of the Redgrave family, which I think, Lynn in and of herself, a wonderful screen presence and an incredibly long career of stage and television and screen. But this is a dynamic family with sister Vanessa, father Sir Michael Redgrave in a lot of films. So it's kind of like talking about, the Houston family or, what others come to mind. But we're talking about generations of great performers, great stage and screen actors, and we're going to miss Lynn Redgrave.
Absolutely, Jimmy, and it's a shame. This is coming on the heels of the tragic death last year of Natasha Richardson, who is Vanessa Redgrave's daughter and of Liam Neeson's wife. Yes, this is yet another tragedy there. I gotta say, for my money, for how I feel about Lynn Redgrave, she'll always be associated with the kind of the crazy mid '60s kind of pop and fab era of London. Not unlike her sister, but in a totally different way. Lynn Redgrave was probably Bridget Jones way before there was a Bridget Jones.
Yeah.
And when I think about films like Georgie Girl, which I love, I mean, the scene at the end where she's married to James Mason while she's has a child by Alan Bates is just wonderful. I mean, what a bittersweet, peculiar ending to a really bittersweet, odd, peculiar film. But recently I had I saw her in another film called Smashing Time, where she was coupled with a British actress from the early '60s who I think they were actually kind of interesting contemporaries, Rita Tushingham. And they play a couple of girls from the provinces who go to London to find, basically to escape their drab lives. It's not unlike the relationship they had in the film The Girl with the Green Eyes, where only that was they went to Dublin instead of to London. And what a wonderful film. I really enjoyed all of those films a lot. They're not quite kitchen sink realism. It was definitely part of the new '60s fab cinema. She did a film in 1970, which a lot of people haven't seen, which was a really good black comedy. It was called The Virgin Soldiers, and it was written and directed by Carl Foreman, who, wrote High Noon. He also wrote Bridge on the River Kwai, but he was, of course, blacklisted, so he couldn't, get credit for that at the time. He also wrote and directed a great film called The Victors, and in this film, she plays kind of the army brat, frumpy daughter of an RSM, Regimental Sergeant Major, played by Nigel Patrick, who finds herself in bed with Nigel Davenport, another sergeant, and being chased around by a private played by the eternally late '60s, early '70s British movie star Haywell Bennett. And I really enjoyed this film immensely as well. It's kind of charming, it's odd. And I think that kind of describes a big part of her, especially of this period. Now, I know this isn't the whole story. This is just the beginning of the story. But this was the part that really enchanted me about her.
We're talking about Lynn Redgrave, who passed away May 2nd, 2010. She was born in London, England, March 8th, 1943. And, Bob, the films you were talking about come from the early part of her career. In fact, her first film was Tom Jones in 1963 in a small role in that role of Susan. But those films you were mentioning from her early career, and when she did appear in Georgie Girl in 1966, she became quite a big star. And, I like what you said about not quite kitchen sink realism. In fact, we're going to refer to that in our letters section because our kitchen sink realism show replayed last week. But I was amazed, Bob, just seeing all of the work that she's done, and a great star of the stage and screen, and the small screen too, lots of television performances. But if you look at her filmography of her entire career, we're looking at close to 100 appearances in film, television, and stage. And much later on in her career, only from a few years back. In fact, I should find the year that Gods and Monsters, 1998. So She was, of course, a small role in that. It was Brendan Fraser and Ian McKellen, the two primary characters in that film. But she added such a great dimension to it, and that's when you just want to, pull out the original Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and then watch Gods and Monsters. But she really added a lot to this, and there was something about her presence as, I believe, Ian McKellen's maid in it, and but. Even though I believe Lynn Redgrave played in a lot of, the supporting roles, she was always really dynamic. And I had forgotten about her in the film Kinsey. And here's the connection, too. Liam Neeson playing Kinsey. And she was one of the interviewees near the end of the film. And when I read about that, I remember how striking she was, because it had to do with her free sexuality, I believe. But she was so, as you say, she's not quite Vanessa Redgrave with the tough political edge and, perhaps not the career that her sister Vanessa had, but a different, where am I going with this? Different, yet just as poignant and successful, and as far as putting forth that a bit sweeter, but still with an edge character that I think she brought to all of her roles. Intelligence definitely was always part of her performances.
Absolutely, Jimmy. I mean, I think she wore her heart on her sleeve. At times when her career hit the skids, she had no problem making herself the butt of her own jokes or her own stories or her own stage plays. Self-effacing, yet graceful. She endured. I mean, when you think about her television, it's everything from Kojak to Desperate Housewives. That's a lot of TV, folks. The gal worked and managed to survive so many travails during her lifetime. A class act. And, I think she's left a lot of stuff behind that people are going to be falling in love with her for hundreds of years to come, when generations yet born go back and look at some of the stuff she's done.
And again, those connections, I think of her family as sort of this entertainment or fine acting dynasty. It's hard to think of her apart. I want to think of her as an individual and her own persona. But boy, that whole family, as far as what they've contributed and all that they were in. I mean, the filmography of her father, her sister, and herself, would probably span page after page.
Oh, my goodness. That'd probably be a three-parter.
Yes, it would. Well, we tribute the Take Two hat off to Lynn Redgrave, wonderful performer, and it's too bad you perhaps maybe move to some of her films now that we know that she's gone. But check out some of her films, and heck, go back to the '60s and see if you feel the way you felt when you first saw Georgie Girl back in the mid-'60s. I like the way you put that, Bob, as far as that sort of pop, kind of groovy, not quite kitchen sink realism grittiness, but she was part of that.
And not quite acid, like really out to lunch, late 60s excess. She was kind of in the middle, very fab.
Yes. Well, we move on now to the Take Two mailbag, and we would like to share some letters. In fact, it's always great to hear from you, the listeners, not only getting great insight into perhaps some of the mistakes that we've made, ideas for shows, and also probably the reason we want to do this, not only to share these great letters to you. Our address is movies@kcbx.org, but we get to play our theme song. Hit it, Hank. We do this to listen to that music, don't we?
Oh, we could just listen to that for the next 46 minutes.
Well, first of all, thanks for sending us your emails. Again, the address is movies@kcbx.org. And, of course, we thank all of you for listening no matter What? We did replay our kitchen sink realism program. It was originally broadcast in 2007, and we had a nice response from listener Pat regarding the kitchen sink realism program. Listening to your show tonight on kitchen sink realism, the second film you discuss, A Taste of Honey with Rita Tushingham, who was with Lynn Redgrave, you mentioned, and the wonderful actor who plays the gay character and whose name you cannot remember is Murray Melvin. In fact, he played the same character in the stage production of Taste of Honey before it became a film. Please Google him. There is enough material there to do an entire show on his work alone. My daughter, a film studies major, has been communicating with Mr. Melvin for a number of years now. He has been a most generous and intelligent correspondent. He worked with Ken Russell and Stanley Kubrick, and on stage his work is renowned. Please do credit him when the next opportunity arises. I enjoy your program. I love KCBX. That's from our listener, Pat. And, Bob, when we get off on subjects, I mean, we obviously can't hit all the bases. And when we were doing the kitchen sink realism, I think we were more focused on Rita Tushingham in the film, and we left out Murray Melvin's name, and it's great to hear that he was quite a player, and it's great to have listeners to bring our attention to this actor whose name we forgot.
My goodness. I think about it, and Murray Melvin was in so many movies. He's one of those renowned British character actors that just seem to keep showing up in everything, and you're going, who is that guy? Who is that guy? And the thing is, I think when you're doing that who is that guy thing, is you're noticing him. And especially in A Taste of Honey, he's such a sensitive, loving, and obviously gay character, but coming to the rescue of poor Rita Tushingham, who's been impregnated yet again and left alone with an overbearing mother played by the wonderful Dora Bryan. I think it's quite fitting that Murray Melvin's name go along with both of those ladies, because he's a pivotal part of that film, and that probably for the kitchen sink realism genre is one of the greatest of all, A Taste of Honey, and really appreciate that letter.
Yeah, me too. And, you can access our archives of Take Two, the movie program. Just go to kcbx.org and go to podcasts. You can find that Kitchen Sink Realism program. I was really proud of that show, Bob, and also bringing attention to some of those great films. And that's the program where we forgot to mention the name of Murray Melvin. So, our next letter comes from our good friend Dave in Australia, and he was really happy with our Humphrey Bogart shows. This was after our first installment that was a 3-part show. I am sure that last week's show was the best work you have done to date. Wow. I am looking forward to listening to part 2 today. I can highly recommend a biography by Jonathan Coe, Humphrey Bogart. Take it and like it. It was published in 1991, so it may be out of print. It is full of information and great photos. And Dave has been listening to us for many years, and he gives us great information. I thought that was good to share with our listeners who might have heard the Humphrey Bogart series that we did. And again, this biography by Jonathan Coe, he highly recommends Humphrey Bogart. Take it and like it.
I like it.
Thank you, Dave. Now, a couple of comments on our Humphrey Bogart programs came from our listener, Jose, who really kind of pushed us a little bit to do the Bogey Show. And, of course, what we came up with was the fact that what can we say about Humphrey Bogart that hasn't already been said? And even though we touched on some of those pivotal films, I think it was a lot of fun finding those little known gems that we found and talked about. But a couple of letters. In fact, there's one thing I wanted to discuss here from Jose. First of all, hello, Bob and Jim. Before there was Pitt and Cruise, Sean Connery, Brando, James Dean, there was Bogart. I love it when Bogart does that rapid-fire delivery. Man, I wish I could do that. I think about that scene in The Maltese Falcon when he's at police headquarters for questioning. It just blasts them. In the middle of his diatribe, he says to the stenographer, "If I'm going too fast for you, son, I can slow down." Then when he leaves their office and closes the door, he gets a big grin on his face. I just love it. So we were talking about Bogart's voice and that rapid fire delivery, all that great dialogue. But here's another letter from Jose with a comment on our Bogart shows, and I just wanted to address this. This is interesting. We opened up our second show with a clip from the Maltese Falcon where Bogart is sending Mary Astor down the river. And, the thing about it that's kind of tough in this movie, The Maltese Falcon, is that he was having a relationship with his client, even though his partner, she was the one who ended up murdering his partner. And instead of going with his client, he sticks up for his partner and sends Mary Astor down the river. The famous scene where you're taking the fall and she's, taken off to prison. So we opened up the program, I think I did, talking about this sort of morally ambiguous gumshoe that Sam Spade was, or it's not it was Sam Spade.
Right.
Okay. Now, my feeling was, if you're with the girl, right, you're with the client, well, you want to have some allegiance to her, but, either way he would go. If he sent he went with Mary Astor, he's sending his partner down the river. What he does in the film is he sends her down the river because, heck, that was his partner who was murdered. So, here's what Jose has to say about that. Thank you for another great show. Thanks for starting out the show with that great clip from the Maltese Falcon. Unfortunately, you misconstrued the end. Sam wasn't being his morally dubious self, even though he didn't really care for Miles all that much. Miles was his partner. And even though he loved her, Mary Astor, he couldn't let her get away with murdering his partner. In fact, she was probably counting on his moral ambiguity. In the end, he does the right thing, or he does do the right thing. That's Jose's take on it. What I kind of like about this is, did he do the right thing? Or, standing up for your partner instead of going, with the client that you've been having fun with,
Well, let's not forget that Bogart was stooping his partner's wife at the beginning of the film
That's
as well.
right.
So clearly his moral compass, was a little demagnetized. It's spinning a little wild there. But what I find interesting about all of this is here's a film that came out in 1941, and here it is, 2010, and we're still having in-depth discussions about it. And I think modern Hollywood better take note, because a lot of the crap they're putting out now, people are not even talking about it when they leave the theater. And I think this is a good thing. This is, if people ever ask what defines classic movies or cinema, if you prefer, I think this is a perfect example of it, what it does and what it continues to do, which is to stir discussion and thought. It's great artistry. I mean, you're talking about John Huston adapting Dashiell Hammett, and really the beginning of the Bogart legend, all rolled into one. I mean, you throw in Mary Astor, Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre, and Bogey getting a slap around Elijah Cook Jr. just for kicks. Who could ask for anything more? I ask you.
Well, we had fun doing those shows, and the thing is, it's not like I have a beef with Jose's take on Maltese Falcon. I think he's absolutely correct. He essentially, within the confines of the morality or amorality of a gumshoe, he did do the right thing by standing up for his partner and sending Mary Astor off. So, but still, even that act could be questioned as morally ambiguous.
Well, it's interesting that we still have this discussion, and I think it's worth noting, Jose, if you're listening, thanks for prodding us on this one. I'm glad we did it. We had a lot of fun at our end. It was a real pleasure doing this, and it almost seems like it could have gone 2 or 3 more parts,
It could have.
It could have.
Well, we want to thank you for writing to us. And again, if you want to send us a letter, and we occasionally go to that Take Two mailbag, it's movies@kcbx.org. If you'd like to listen to those Humphrey Bogart programs, go to kcbx.org and go under podcasts, and you can listen to those 3 shows that we did honoring the more obscure efforts of Humphrey Bogart.
You know, as a sidebar, Jimmy, about 2 weeks ago when I was sick and I was home, I actually saw another version of To Have and Have Not, which I had never seen before. And I'm not talking about the John Garfield, Patricia Neal one, which I still haven't seen in its entirety. It came out right around the time John Garfield died. But I saw a film called The Gunrunners, directed by Don Siegel, and it starred Audie Murphy in the Bogart role, Patricia Owens in the Lauren Bacall role. You might remember her. She was Al Hedison's wife in The Fly. Help me! You remember. It also had Eddie Albert as a heavy, and it's worth noting how good he was as a somewhat unhinged bad guy. Wonderful. It also had Everett Sloane, Richard Jekyll, Jack Elam, some Swedish dame I never heard of before or since, directed by Don Siegel, one of the great American filmmakers, a guy who gave us the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and years later, Dirty Harry, etc., etc. Wonderful film, Jim, and I was thinking about the Bogart show when I saw this. It was like kind of a wonderful little footnote. I mean, the film was fast. It was over 94 minutes, but wonderful. Very good version. Maybe the best thing Audie Murphy did. Not Bogart, but it's still the story when it's done right. It's a good vehicle.
And, you know, just thinking about some of these letters that we've gotten in some of the past shows, and, of course, you there listening, we're so glad that you're there. Movies@kcbx.org. You can write to us if you've found an obscure Bogart film, or hopefully our programs are sort of a springboard for you to take a look at maybe what we're suggesting, but going beyond. And if you've seen something that you really enjoy, you know, you found something, an obscure Bogart or anything, we'd love to hear from you. It's great that you're out there. It's movies@kcbx.org. Well, it's already time to go over to the concession stand, refill our popcorns and drinks. We're going to take a look at some of the upcoming films that are, well, already pretty much in your face, since summer starts in May when we're talking the movie business. And we also want to bring your attention to some of the films coming out this summer in the next few months that will be under the radar, that may or may not become a hit, but we certainly don't want you to miss. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming out in the next few months. Back in a moment with more of Take Two. You're listening to Take Two on Public Radio, KCBX and KCBX HD1 San Luis Obispo, KSBX Santa Barbara, and KNBX San Ardo. We're streaming worldwide at kcbx.org. You can write to the program at movies@kcbx.org and check out the Take Two program archives at kcbx.org. And you can also catch us at npr.org.
Support for KCBX comes from Sage Eco Gardens and Nursery, a division of Sage Ecological Landscapes, now featuring California-friendly plants at 1188 Los Osos Valley Road in Los Osos. Open 7 days a week.
Take Two is sponsored by the 2011 San Luis Obispo International Film Festival. Complete information available at slofilmfest.org. We're back in the KCBX screening room and the Take Two studios. My name is Jim Dee. I'm here with Bob Whiteford.
Hello.
We're doing a little bit of an overview of upcoming films in theaters in the next few months, of course, Bob. Summer starts in May. Usually the big one out of the gate comes in the first or second week in May to sort of get a jump on the summer fair. And I think the studios hope that whatever they release in the beginning of May might still be playing in June. But, you know, sometimes these blockbusters come and go. Sometimes they have legs and they're in the theaters for quite some time. Right out of the gate on May 7th, it is probably the film that could or couldn't be perhaps the biggest film of the summer. It's Iron Man 2. And Bob, you and I are old Marvelites. You know, we were into all those great comic books of the 60s and all the heroes that seem to be making in the screen, 40 plus years later. However, I've got to say, I have not seen all of the Marvel adaptations. I didn't see Daredevil. I've actually seen most of them. But got to say that as far as capturing that spirit, that wisecracking but action-packed feel of those great Marvel comics of the 60s, you know, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, all these great artists and writers. The first Iron Man, for me, nailed it. Robert Downey Jr. seemed to have that really kind of cool, flippant attitude. The special effects were fabulous, and I'm not sure what it was, but I think the only other film, when we talk about comic book adaptations, that kind of nailed it close to this was the first X-Men. I didn't actually see the other two. I think they have to rethink the Fantastic Four series. I was pretty upset with that and the fact that it really didn't capture, maybe a little too comic booky. You know, the first Iron Man, Jon Favreau, the director, now he's also directing on this one, does a few cameos in there as well. But Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts really just seemed to work in the first picture. If you've seen the trailers for the new Iron Man, I think it's going to be huge. And Bob, I got to tell you, what seems to be missing from Iron Man 2 seems to be the fact that it's not in 3D. I assume it'll be... Oh, my goodness.
I'm shocked.
It will be available, I'm sure, in IMAX. But, you know... What I find really interesting is the industry has gone crazy for 3D, and why not? Avatar is so huge, and of course, subsequent releases. Well, since last year with Monsters and Aliens, I believe, the 3D Express has been gaining momentum, and now the whole, you know, Hollywood seems to be tripping over themselves to go 3D. But Iron Man just looks like a great movie and a great entertaining summer blockbuster in the style of the first one, and no 3D in sight. And I kind of like that because I think we're going to have to. Hollywood's going to have to get back to this, that 3D is not going to sell the film, and it doesn't seem to be selling Iron Man 2. I think in glorious 2D, it's going to be just fine.
Well, I agree, Jimmy. The first film had it seemed like it was Robert Downey, the role he was born to play, Tony Stark. And he took it and made it his own. And like you, I'm a fan of the old 60s Marvel comics. And this one was true to the spirit. In fact, you know, Tony Stark was kind of hip, you know, but he was an arms dealer. You know, it's where he got all his gadgets. And I think in the context of the modern world and the military-industrial complex, Tony Stark was probably, you know, a movie about Iron Man was probably years coming. You know, it should have happened a long time ago. I'm glad it didn't, because Jon Favreau has done a great job with this. I'm very excited to see this, and I know that sounds strange coming out from these lips, but Iron Man 2 has a certain appeal to me. I like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, Iron Man. I'm very intrigued to have a look at Mickey Rourke, post The Wrestler.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the idea, like you, that this isn't 3D. It's actually probably got characters, dialogue, motivation, humor, which the first film certainly had. Now, granted, it had special effects and whatnot. It's an effects-laden film, but it was not dominated by the effects. It seemed like there was a lot of interesting interplay amongst the characters, good dialogue. Dare I say it, I think Jon Favreau has a better handle on directing actors than certain big directors. And let's see. For 3D lovers out there, or the 3D Express, you better hope it's not a train wreck, because without characters and without good dialogue, 3D on its own ain't going to make it. And I think this film is a great example of that.
Let's hope. Let's hope
so.
So we're going to go over some of the bigger, higher profile films that are coming out this summer, just to give you an idea. But again, we're going to go back and talk about some of the smaller films, but no less, I'm sure, gratifying experiences at the movie theater. The new Ridley Scott film teams him up again with Russell Crowe on May 14th. Robin Hood coming out. I tend to think that this ain't going to be... the version that we know with
Errol Flynn?
With Errol Flynn.
Probably not.
Probably not. I would say, I'm not sure what the rating is on it, but it should be interesting. At least visually, I tend to think with Ridley Scott directing, it should be a visual feast, whether the film is good or not. But that's another high-profile film coming out. I watched the trailer for a film called Splice. It looks rather creepy. It has Adrian Brody, sci-fi horror film. Watch out for that one. It looks quite intriguing and kind of intense. They're remaking The Karate Kid. I guess that's...
oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Okay. Another comic adaptation, Jonah Hex, coming in on... I believe it's June 18th. And here's the one that might be a contender with Iron Man, Bob. I'm talking about Toy Story 3. The Pixar studios, along with Disney, usually always bat 1,000. And I tend to think with the... they've been re-releasing the first two Toy Stories, I think, on Blu-ray. I mean, they've been bombarding everyone with the first two pictures. I would tend to think that Pixar will go all out with the third film of Toy Story 3. That comes out on the 18th of June. I think it's going to be huge. And another animated film coming out, which also has a great track record, Shrek Forever After. And, whatever happened to Mike Myers? He's the voice of Shrek. I would love to see him in a comedy. I still think he has his comedy chops. He was in that film called The Love Guru, which I guess tanked big time. But
probably one of the worst films of all time. He had a terrific cameo playing the British general in Inglourious Bastards, to Rod Taylor's Winston Churchill. Salute, a tip of the hat to Tarantino. Excellent casting there. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah. The Twilight Saga will continue this summer, and of course the new Twilight Saga film is called Eclipse, and they're going to program this right before July 4th. That's usually a big movie-going weekend, and that series has really proven to be huge at the box office. So those of you who are Twilight fans, a new one this summer. Here's one that you might find very interesting, a film called Inception. It has... why can't I think of it? Leonardo DiCaprio, but the director is Christopher Nolan, and this is, I believe, the first film he has done since The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. One thing that's interesting about Christopher Nolan is what a filmography he has as a director. He is not only the director of, I guess, would be the third highest grossing film of all time, which first would be Avatar, next Titanic, and next The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. But Christopher Nolan really rebooted the whole Batman series, whether or not what you and I thought about The Dark Knight, Bob.
Right.
But I really find it interesting that Christopher Nolan is really making a lot of movies. He made a film called The Prestige. He remade the Scandinavian film Insomnia, which was quite interesting, with Robin Williams and
Al Pacino.
So, I mean, it's really interesting. This director is, Christopher Nolan, is busy, and he's doing some interesting things. Now, Inception, I believe, is coming out in the middle of July. This is about tapping into people's dreams, apparently. There's kind of a hush-hush about the plot of this film. Mm-hmm. If you want to go online and check out the trailer, it looks quite interesting, but it's the fact that Christopher Nolan isn't sitting still, and he proves to be a somewhat interesting director. We should look for Inception this summer. And then another action thriller, Angelina Jolie and Salt. That's getting kind of a big buzz, and we'll see how that's going. Those are some of the high-profile films for this summer, but what we want to do is bring your attention to some of the other films that are also coming out this summer. And the first one I want to bring up is a trilogy that's playing in, well, it's not the entire trilogy, but it is rolling out slowly, and it's a huge, huge hit in Europe. And we're talking about the three films, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and the third one, The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. All three of these films were made in Sweden based on best-selling novels by the Swedish novelist, and these are already huge hits in Europe. It's being distributed in this country by a very small distributor, and if you can catch these three films, folks, this is one of the most amazing trilogies that you will see. So if you're looking for something that's away from all the CGI, special effects, this is a tough and amazing thriller mystery series, and the second film, called The Girl Who Played with Fire, comes out in the middle of July, and you've got to look around, but look for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo to start off this amazing trilogy from Sweden.
Well, I got to say, I've seen this film twice recently, and it's very rare I'll go see a film twice, but I was really taken with this. What's interesting about this film is I think that the European sensibilities work better for the subject matter. Now, I'm not a snob about this. I'm not some effete, oh, there he goes, No, I really think the subject matter is pretty harsh, and it's how it's handled. And, sometimes I talked about a film a long time ago. It was called 29 Palms, and it was done by a French filmmaker named, I think it was Bruno Mattei, and it had to do with a rape scene at the end of the movie, which just I pretty much blew a gasket when I watched it, because I felt like it was so intense and so uncompromisingly made that you felt like a witness to a crime, a brutal crime, and it made you kind of sick. I support that kind of filmmaking. I'm not saying that I really want to go see it anymore. This film, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, doesn't require that kind of gratuitous brutality to drive its point home. It's really about, this is a film about consequences and about the aftermath of violence and murder, especially on, most of the victims in this film are women, and I just like what it does with it. And there's subtleties to this film that really make it effective. Yes, it's violent, but there's something more going on that allows it to kind of really bear fruit. I think the bleak Scandinavian landscapes add a certain pathos to this film that you're not going to find in a Hollywood production. If they're thinking about remaking this, let's hope that's just a rumor. It's a wonderful film.
So this summer and probably into fall, check out the three films that are a huge hit in Europe: The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. The Dragon's Nest. Oh, boy. Just a few other films. We can open up the phone lines here for our final 15 minutes, but a comedy by the name of Cyrus coming out looks rather interesting. That'll be right after July 4th. One film I'm kind of interested in seeing as well. Oh, another film with Coco Chanel. We had one last year with Audrey Tautou. Another one coming out called Coco Chanel and Igor Stravinsky. That should be coming out. A very interesting film about the relationship between these two. And while we're bringing up Audrey Tautou, I want to bring your attention to a film, the French film Amélie, which stars Audrey Tautou. Such a huge hit, and it just seems to be a favorite. The director of Amélie has a new one this summer. It's called Micmacs, and I can highly recommend the fact I've seen the film. If you enjoyed Amélie, you will love Micmacs. So watch for that this summer. And one more. a great team up of Robert Duvall and Bill Murray, a film called Get Low. That's coming out, I believe, in the latter part of July. Watch for this one. This is kind of a quirky little film. If you go online and look for the trailer for Get Low, I think this is, a subdued Bill Murray. Robert Duvall comes out of the mountains, and getting low means dying. It means he's going to get low, he's going to get low underground. It looks quirky, it looks interesting, and of course I'll probably gravitate towards anything with Robert Duvall in it.
Absolutely.
And this looks very interesting, probably that counter programming of Summer Fair. Look for Get Low. A ton of others, but let's open up the phone lines and talk to our listeners. 549-8855. 1-800-549-8855. Give us a call. Are you looking forward to some of the films that are coming up that maybe have your eyes on for the summer? Have you listened to some of our shows, and did we mispronounce something, or did we forget the name of an actor? Let us know. 549-8855, 1-800-549-8855. Of course, if you've seen anything in the movie theaters or on video or DVD that maybe you'd like to share with us, that would be great. And give us a call. 549-8855, 1-800-549-8855.
I want to throw this one out, too. I read an article the other day that the Avatar DVD and Blu-ray was having some kind of technical problems, and apparently a lot of people are unhappy. I'd be curious to know if anybody's dealt with that firsthand. Be curious to know.
I'm surprised that Avatar is out on DVD. Even the fact that it's still in movie theaters and still up to about almost $750 million domestic gross. I think worldwide it's past $2 billion. So,
yeah, pretty shocking.
549-8855, 1-800-549-8855. Give us your name and where you are calling from. Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Hi, this is Pat. I'm in Templeton.
Hi, Pat.
I'm just wondering, what is the big deal with these vampire movies? What is the draw?
That's a good question, because there's a lot of them. And,
I know.
There was one that I saw about a year ago. Again, we're talking about a Swedish movie called Let the Right One In. That was probably a film that I thought, okay, there's nothing new in the vampire genre. They're remaking this one for an American release. Ooh. But I don't know what the draw is. The people like vampires. I mean, on television and on the movie screen. I'm not sure what it is.
You don't know either.
No.
Well, I've been scratching my head over this one. It seems like the vampire, looking back over the films down the years, starting with Dracula, with Lugosi, and then later on with the Hammer films of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the vampire is kind of the sensual, erotic
That's
creature.
what I don't get.
I'm not sure if I get it either. I when I close my eyes and think of blue thoughts, Bela Lugosi doesn't come to mind. But I think nowadays they're very young and they're very pretty. That show on HBO,
True Blood.
Yeah, that kind of tapped into. I think that kind of really helped fuel the fire to that. Everyone's young.
I mean, I can understand wanting to kiss the guy, but suck his blood?
Yeah. Sometimes some people need a little more to get gratified.
Well, I'm glad you kind of answered my question. You don't know either.
No.
And you are the top of the film critics as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, bless your heart.
And bless yours. Talk to you another time.
Thanks for the call.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Oh, hi. This is Donna Bear from glamorous Grover Beach.
Hi there.
Hey, how are you doing tonight?
Good.
Good. I just wanted to thank you guys. I've been away, and I came back today, and the sounds of your voices that was really reassuring. It's like, yeah, everything's going to be normal and okay.
Well, forgive us, Donna. Sometimes, like last week, I was so sick I couldn't speak. And just to say it, I mean, the last couple of years since my business closed, my life has changed a lot. sometimes I have to take work, and it means I can't come on the air, and I
Yeah.
don't feel good about it. I hope that's going to change. I got a feeling things are going to get a little better, and
Good.
I'm just
It will.
believe me, we're glad to be here too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I told Hank when he answered the phone, because you guys know me. Jim will recognize my name. And, and Bob, you would probably recognize it, too, because I did so much work for volunteer work for KCBX.
Yes,
But
you bet.
but yeah, I just came out of the nervous hospital.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's kind of a tough transition. You come home and you go, okay, when you were crazy, where did you put this thing? And this other thing seems to be missing. But you know, the worst thing was being inside and not being able to listen to the radio. That was the worst thing. And as far as your business goes, I have a feeling something is going to come up really quick for you.
I think so, too.
A big opportunity.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you. And are you doing better?
Yeah, I am. They gave me meds, and, you know, as long as I take my meds, I'll be okay.
Well, you know, these are tough times we're living in, and people can only take so much. I mean, believe me, you have very empathetic ears at this end.
Well, we'll have to get together and have maybe all three of us, or just you, whoever wants to come, and I'll come over to the station when I get access to my car, sit down and have a cup of coffee, because it was a real wild story, and I think I'm probably going to write a book about it.
Wow. Well,
Or a movie, a screenplay.
Out of sight.
Yeah, so that would be really cool, you know, to get you guys' take on it, because it really is an odyssey, and it can happen to anyone. I'm manic depressive, I found out.
whoa.
Yeah, but I didn't find out from them. I knew that already. It's like, hello, I've been taking medication, and I know what the depressive side is, Bob. You know, it's pretty bad.
Boy, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
You take care of yourself.
I will, and when you guys were talking about Bogart, I love Bogart, but you know what? The King, Clark Gable, will always be it for me.
Hey, well.
Yeah, I hear you. The King.
The King.
Yeah.
He was called the King.
Yeah, well, The Misfits, his last film,
Oh, yeah.
is of the ages. I mean, he really showed his chops in that one.
Yeah, I remember when he died. You guys are also old enough to remember all this. That's the good thing about getting older, is that you can remember all kinds of neat things. Life and Look and Saturday Evening Post magazines. And I remember seeing on the cover of, I think it was on the cover of Life, and it was a picture of, it wasn't a picture of Clark Gable, it was a picture of his wife and their baby son.
That was born after he died.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you guys take care, and I love your show as always, and I'll be listening. As soon as I get off the phone, I'll turn the radio back on.
Atta girl. Take
Thanks.
care of yourself.
Thanks for the call.
Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Yeah, this is Bill in Morris Bay.
Hiya.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah, hi. Have you guys done a show on Westerns lately?
Boy, we could do a 10-part show on Westerns. That
Yeah.
would be great. Nothing specifically to Westerns, but I think we've mentioned Westerns, at least in the
I'd love to do something on Westerns.
Well, you know, there's some really good Westerns that don't get much acclaim. And
Name one.
Last Train from Gun Hill.
Yeah, Kirk Douglas. Love
Good
that
movie.
one.
There's a TV movie about 20 years ago called Conager.
Okay.
Have you seen that? It's Sam Elliott.
No, unfortunately I haven't seen that. Was that a Louis L'Amour adaptation?
It could have been, yeah.
Last
Yeah, it
Train
seemed
from
like
Gun Hill, I
that
remember.
That is a great Western movie, and you never see it anywhere. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but Last Train from Gun Hill, that's
Last Train,
From
Of
Gun
course,
Hill.
the biggies like The Searchers and High Noon. Those are well known, but some of the lesser known, really good ones.
Did you ever see Terror in a Texas Town with Sterling Hayden?
No.
He goes and approaches the gunfighter, the villain gunfighter, who's all dressed in black, and they're gonna have a shootout, and Sterling Hayden has a whaling harpoon. It's classic.
Okay, well that's true to character then, isn't it?
Yeah, all the way, and done in a western. In a western genre. You've got Sebastian Cabot as the Heavy. Yeah, that's
Well,
I love that
sound
movie.
It doesn't sound that serious to me.
Oh,
but,
no, it is fairly serious. There's a lot of undertones of racism and stuff. I'd also recommend The Ride Back with Anthony Quinn and William Conrad. Came out around 1957. That's kind of an obscure Western, which is great.
I think I remember that.
How about 7 Men from Now with Randolph Scott?
I used to love the old Randolph Scott movies, but I look at them now and they are so corny.
Check this one out.
Ride the High Country. That one with was that Kirk Douglas?
No, that's Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Probably one of Peckinpah's first films.
Yeah, that was a great movie. Yeah. And the other one with Kirk Douglas and the horse.
Lonely Are the Brave?
Yep, Lonely Are the Brave.
That's
great film.
Yeah.
That's one of my all-time favorites. That's a great one.
And Kirk Douglas's, too.
Yeah. Okay, check out Conager.
We will.
Okay.
And thanks for the idea about Westerns. I mean, that's kind of an obvious one. So we'll tackle it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, some of the obscure ones that are pretty good. Okay, thanks. We love your show.
Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for the call. Well, I think we're just about there. We want to thanks for the phone calls. And, of course, once again, we really enjoyed sharing your letters. And if you have any ideas for any future shows here on Take Two, the movie program, movies@kcbx.org. And we'll be back. And, Bob, we're working on this Roger Corman tribute, which is going to take a little time to do, considering the incredible filmography, his impact on the industry, and, all those great American international classics that you and I love.
Well, we've been culling for weeks now, working on this one, and I've got a table at home that's filled with 70 DVDs and videos. If you like Roger Corman, and I know you do, you're going to like this, because we're going to be hitting on just about everything he ever laid his hands on. It's amazing. When you see them all together like that, wow. What a collection of films. I'm really excited about this one.
I am too. A major part of my growing up in the 60s, going to those Edgar Allan Poe adaptations, among many, many others. Want to thank everyone for listening tonight to Take Two. Hopefully there's some great movies out there, whether they're new ones in the movie theaters or classics on DVD at home. We hope you can take some time out and from the craziness of the world and enjoy a good movie. Bob and I will be back again next week with another edition of Take Two.